We begin today at the Mishnah towards the bottom of Kuf Zayim Omid Beis. Second Mishnah of this Perek, which will also discuss the subject about who has a chelik in Olam Haba and who doesn't. And in the first Mishnah of the Perek, it mentioned certain individuals that do not have a chelik in Olam Haba. Here the Mishnah brings certain generations, that the entire generation does not have a chelik in Olam Haba. Zok the Heilige Mishnah, Doir HaMabel. The generation of the Mabel, Ein Lem Chelik L'Olam Haba. Do not have a portion in Olam Haba. And also, Ve'ein Oimdim Badin. There will be a great judgment of all of humanity. So they won't even be there at that judgment either. Shenema, as the Pasuk says, L'yodin Ruchi Ba'adam, which means two things. L'Olam, L'Oidin V'Loi Ruach. This lashon of L'yodin, and then it says Ruchi, the Mishnah Darshans, it means that they will not be at any judgment. And also not Ruach, which means they won't have that spirit, that life in Olam Haba. The Torah Flage as well does not have a portion in Olam Haba. Shenema, as the pasuk describes, what happened to the people. They were building a tower, and Vayafetz Hashem Oisam, Misham al Pnei Kol Haaretz, and then it says Aksivu Misham Hefitzam. So these two psukim where it says that they were scattered around, Vayafetz Hashem Oisam refers to Bailam Hazeh, that they lost their life in this world. Misham Hefitzam Hashem, which is La'olam Haba. But here the Mishnah does not say that they will not be at the time of the great judgment, which sounds like, I think the Tesis Yontif here says that they will be coming back, Lasad Lavai, for the time of judgment, and then they will be judged to be condemned forever, and they will not be in Olam Haba. Anshe Zdaim, the people of the city of Zdaim, Ein Lehem Chelik L'Olam Haba. They do not have a Chelik in Olam Haba either. Shenem of Anshe Zdaim, Roim, V'chatoim, Lashem Ma'oid. So the two expressions it says here, Roim and Chatoim Lashem Ma'oid. Roim means Bailam Hazeh. V'chatoim means L'Olam Haba. Avol Oimdim Badin. However, they will get up for a din, the great judgment, Lashad Lavai, and then they will be judged to be condemned forever. On this, here the Mishnah spells out regarding Anshe Zdaim that the Tanakama holds they will get up for din, because here Rabbi Nechemia argues. Rabbi Nechemia says, Eilu ve'eilu ein oimdim badin, that the Ramabel and also the Deir of Zdaim will not get up for any din. Shenemar, there's a pasuk where it says, and he touches it on the Deir of Zdaim, Al-Kain liyikum rishon ba'mishpat, and then it says, V'chatoim ba'adas tzadikim. What are the two parts of the pasuk? Al-Kain liyikum rishon ba'mishpat, when it says that the Rishaim will not get up for judgment, Zed Deir Ramabel, that they will not get up. And v'chatoim ba'das tzadikim, who are the other sinners that will not be with the congregation of tzadikim? Elu anshe Zdaim. People of Zdaim also will not get up with the righteous to be judged. That's the way Rabbi Nechemia teaches this pasuk. So Amru Loi, the Chachamim said to him, no, in this pasuk itself, you actually see that the people of Zdaim will get up for a din, because it Einam oimdim ba'das tzadikim. What it's saying here is that they're not going to be in the congregation of tzadikim, meaning they're not going to be judged righteously. They will be getting up and they will be judged, and they'll be judged as Rishaim to be condemned forever. Another generation of people that don't have a chelik l'olam haba, miraglim, eilem chelik l'olam haba. The miraglim do not have a chelik in l'olam haba. Shenema vayemusu anoshim maitziyeh divas haaretz ra b'magefa lefnei Hashem. So the Mishnah Darshans, vayemusu means b'olam hazeh, and then when it says b'magefa, it means l'olam haba. So therefore, the entire Deir HaMidbar, that is, do not have a portion in Olam Haba. You see here on the side it says that in Yerushalmi, they're not guide is this, that this is actually talking about the Meraglim themselves. Deir HaMidbar is after this. Here it's talking about the Meraglim themselves, but the Yerushalmi, that's not guide is this. Okay, we'll see more later in the Gemara about this.
Why don't we take into consideration that they already got punished?
That's one punishment. Their Aveda was so great. Now, all these ones over here, it says, all of them got punished in Olam Hazeh. But that punishment in Olam Hazeh is they disconnected themselves completely, even in Olam Haba as well. There's more about this when we get to Deir HaMiraglim. We'll see in the Gemara. Deir HaMidbar, Ein Lehem Chelik L'Olam Haba. The Deir HaMidbar does not have a Chelik in Olam Haba. In other words, not only the Miraglim, that entire Deir HaMidbar. And they won't even get up for any judgment. Shanem, the pasuk says, Ba'midbar Hazeh Yitamu. And V'sham Yemusu, the two expressions of Yitamu and Sham Yemusu refers to in Olam Hazeh and in Olam Haba. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Eliezer says, Aleim U'aymer, it's regarding this state of the Midbar, the pasuk says, Isfu li chasidai, gather to me my pious ones, Karsei Berisi, they make a bond with me, Alei Zavach, on the karbanis that they brought, and he's darshans that it refers to this day in the Midbar that brought karbanis for the Eibishter. So the Mepharshim point out regarding this that the Deir HaMidbar not the Meraglim, but the entire Dera Midbar, there were definitely many tzaddikim amongst them. Even the Tanakama that says, Rabbi Akiva that says that you don't have a chelik in Olam Haba can't be referring to the tzaddikim that was amongst them. Adas Kairach, Eina Sida Lales. Kairach also, the whole congregation that was with Kairach is not going to have a chelik in Olam Haba. It uses here the term that they're not going to get up because they were swallowed into the ground. So they're not going to get up from that place that they were swallowed in the ground. Shenem, as the pasuk describes, with the chas aleim haaretz. So that refers to Bailam Hazeh, they were covered. And then it says, Vayoivdu, mitoich hakol, they're lost from all the people, that's Loilam Haba. Livrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Eliezer says, Aleim hu aimet, regarding them it says, Hashem meimis umachaya, that Hashem brings death and then he brings life. Meirit sha'oil, and then afterwards it adds, those that went down into Gehenna, when they were swallowed into the ground, Vayoal, that they will be brought up again. Okay, let me just mention again what I mentioned in the beginning of the Perek, when the Mishnah says regarding those that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba, that the Rebbe in a letter explains ba'arichis that even those that are listed in the Mishnah and Gemara that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba, they will be in Olam Haba in a different eifin, with a different gilgul, or a different, there's different pirushim in the Inyan, but every yid ultimately will be in Olam Haba in one way or another.
Okay, but you said the special word yid.
True. I'm saying this regarding the Meraglim, the Ramidbar, Adas Kairach, but regarding
the game today, L'chaira could be in Olam Haba.
Correct. We had already also before. Read in the Gemara. The Gemara is Medaik when it says that Bilam does not have a chelik in Olam Haba. So the Gemara says, so that means that others that are not Bilam, even Goyim, will be in Olam Haba. But when it says Dera Mabul and Sheis Daim and so on, they don't have a chelik in Olam Haba at all. And the same thing, all those Goyim that persecuted Yidden in all the times of generation do not have any chelik in Olam Haba at all. Yeah. So as I mentioned, the Gemara here is going to be primarily speaking about the inyan of the Doir HaMabul. Doir HaMabul Eilem Chelik Leilam Haba Shenema Vayimach As Kol HaYikum Asher Al Pnei Adama. So the first part of the pasuk it says the Eibishter wiped out all of humanity from the face of the earth. So Vayimach As Kol HaYikum means Bailam Hazeh, in this world. And then the pasuk there continues and says Vayimachu Mina Aretz. They were wiped out from the land Loilam Haba. It refers to Olam Haba, which is also called the land Eretz HaChaim. Divrei Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Loi Chayin, they're not going to live, and Veloini Dainin, and they're not going to be judged either. They're not going to get up to be judged as well. That's I could mention in the Mishnah. Shenema lo Yodan Ruchi ba'Adam lo Olam, lo Din v'lo Ruach, not to be judged and not the Ruach, the spirit of life in Olam Haba. Dover Acher, another pshat, lo Yodan Ruchi means shloi tehei nishmasan chayzeres lenadana. That lo Yodan Ruchi, the word Yodan here does not mean judgment. It means that their Ruach, their spirit, will not return to its holder, which means to its Keli, which is the Guf. Rab Nachman Bar Yosef or Bar Yosi Omer, Rab Nachman Bar Yosi says that that they will be returned into the Guf, the Doir HaMabul, but they're not going to survive though. That's going to be their punishment. Even when the Eibush will return the neshamas of the Doir HaMabul into their dead bodies, Lefgadim Mason, that is, Nishmasan Kashalem Begehenim. Their neshama will be difficult for them like a Gehenim. Shanem, the pasuk describes and says that Taru Chashash Teildu Kash Ruchachem Eish Teichlem, which means that they conceive like Chashash, which is a little how does it touch over there? Sheaf, which is different from the tvua, the chaff that is. Or Teildu Kash refers to Kash, straw. When you have fire, the neshama is going to be like a fire, which is going to burn their bodies, and their bodies is going to be like straw and chaff. And so therefore they will get up, but they will be burnt up. Tana Rabbanan, another brayse we learn. Doira Mabul, the generation of the Mabul, Loinus Go, Elabishvul Toivish Shpilam HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were Baligaiva, they were very proud of themselves because of the abundance of good that the Eibusha gave them. Umaksiv Ben, what does it say about the Doira Mabul? Batim Shalom Mipachad, Bateim Shalom Mipachad, their houses was with peace and they had no fear. V'lo Yishevet Teleka Aleim, there was no punishment from the Eibusha upon them. And Eksiv, it says the abundance of good they had. Shoirei Iber, their oxen gave a zera that caused pregnancy, never had anything lost. V'lo Yagel, Tefalet Parasai, their cows gave birth. V'lo Teshakal, and never lost a baby. Oksiv, the pasuk additionally says, Yishlechu Katzayin Avileim, they send out their children to play around like sheep. Viladeim Irakton, their children were dancing around. Uksiv, and it says Yisu B'Soif Echinoi, They have their harp and the drums, v'yismachu, and they're dancing and they're happy. L'koil ugav, to the joy, to the sound of music. The kids, they were having a good time. They were as you see here, Oksiv, and it says Yibalu yameim b'toiv ushneisam b'neimim, that they were their life. They had no stop playing around and doing things that they felt was good and pleasant in their eyes. But they lived though a life which was lawless and without any stops and without any discipline. Oksiv, the pasuk says, Uberega sho'el yechatu. In a moment they go down into Sho'el, into Gehenim. And vihi garma she'amru lekeil. This causes that they said to the Eibishter, Sur mimenu. The Eibishter, the fact that they had all this abundance of goodness and they were just living life without any rules whatsoever. This caused that they said to the Eibishter, Sur mimenu. V'das rachach alecha fatznu. Remove yourself from us and to know your ways. We're not interested. Ma shakai kinavdenu. Who's the Eibush that we have to serve them? Uman noyel. What good does he give us? Kiniv gabay, that we should have to him. What is this? They said, Omru klum tzrichimanu el latipashal geshama. We need the Eibush for the drop of rain. Yeshlanu narais umayonois. We have rivers and springs. Shana mistapkeme ben, that we can have enough water that we don't need him anymore. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibush says, with the goodness that I gave them, with all this water of rivers and springs, this is what they speak out against me, that they don't need my rain. This is the water, is what I will judge them and punish them with. Shenema, that's what the pasuk says. That's why they were punished with the mabel of water. Rabbi Yossi says, Doira mabel lenisgo ela b'shvil galgala ayin shadeimu l'mayim. Doira mabel, they were haughty in their eyes because of their eyes. Galgala ayin, the eyes that they looked with their eyes, and whatever they saw, they gave themselves. They didn't have no stops. And the galgal ayin is similar to water. How is it similar to water? The Gemara is soon going to say, because just like a spring of water, that water comes out from it, or the eyes also, the tears come out of the eyes. Shenemat says, whatever they saw, whoever they saw, they took wives from whatever they wished. So they were also judged with water. That's similar to the eyes. That the springs from below and from the heavens from above opened up, and it began raining, and that's the mabel. Rashi actually is one that says it here, that the eyes also flows from it, also similar to a spring that flows from it. Rabbi Yechon said, they destroy the world with, and the Torah uses the term Rabba, and when they would judge, it also says in the Torah Rabba. Much and great was the evil of people. That there was a tremendous water that came from below. There are 3 of these hot springs that still remained. Beloya de Godar, which is the name of a place where you have these hot springs. Chame Tveria, in Tveria as well, and the Eina Rabasi de Biram, and it's place of Eina Rabasi of Biram. There are some Mefarshim that say that there are other hot springs in the world, but these are the 3 hot springs in Eretz Yisrael that remained. Kihishches kol basar, as darkel aretz, the pasuk says that the people destroy their behavior in this world. Rabbi Yechon, what this means is not only their own personal behavior, but melamed sherbiu behema chaya v'chayal behema, that in animals they cohabited, the different animals that's not their kind. A behema with a chaya with a behema v'akoil al adam al akoil, and the people also cohabited with everything, with all kinds of species. After the Mabel, they all returned to go back to their own species. Besides this kind of bird, which is called the tushlami, that still cohabits with other kinds of birds that are not its own min. Hashem says to Noach, the end of all people came in front of me. See how powerful is what happens when people are chamas. Chamas means stealing from one another. Shaharei Deira Mabel Avru Alakail. Deira Mabel, they did whatever they wanted. And as we see here before, the main thing wasn't arayas, that the way they lived and the way they cohabited. But when was their judgment sealed? When they went and were stealing from one another. Shanem, as it says, and then and what's this chamas? Ksiv, ha-chamas come Lamate, Rasha, the Chamas got up in front of the Eibishter like a stick for the Rasha, and it said, V'loi mehem, v'loi ma'amoinam, v'loi mehemeyem, v'loi noya behem. What this means is, Amar Abalaza, Malamed, Shezakav Atzma Kamakal, V'amad Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This, that Yidden was stealing, so it got up in front of Hashem. It stood like a stick in front of Hashem, V'amar Lefanov, and says in front of the Eibishter, Rebbeinu Shalaylam, Loi mehem, not from them. There's no, in other words, there's no tayelis in them at all, and to keep them in the world. Not from any of their possessions or their money. And don't look towards them. There's nothing to get from them. These people have to be wiped out from this world. So from here you see the Mefarshim say that as long as they were getting along with one another, and there was achdus and peace between them, all the great avedas that they did, the Gzar Din was not sealed. Only when there was no peace between them, when they were fighting and they were stealing from one another, that's what is chaysim their Gzar Din. And va'afal noyach nechtam Gzar Din. Shenema v'loi noyach behem. The Gemara is darshaning, even though on the lashon of the pasuk it says v'loi noya behem with a hey, but it darshans as if it says v'loi noyach behem, that there shouldn't be even noyach, shouldn't survive either. The Gzar Din was on him as well. And the Gemara brings another source for this. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, afal noyach nechtam Gzar Din. The Gzar Din was on noyach as well. Elo shematzachen b'nei Hashem, but then he found grace in the eyes of Hashem. Shenema nichamti ki asisim v'noyach matzachen b'nei Hashem. So the way you read the pasuk according to this drasha is nichamti ki asisim v'noyach. Hashem says, I regretted creating the world, including Noach, and then, but afterwards matzachen b'nei Hashem. Right, so it doesn't mean that Noach wasn't a tzaddik. The Mefarshim say about this that because you followed the majority, because the overwhelming majority of the world was all Rishayim, so Noach was included in this, that the Eibishter said that he's going to wipe out all of mankind. But then the Eibishter decided to save Noach. So the simple pshat is that Hashem regretted that He created man in the world. So the Gemara darshans this here, two pshatim. Kiyaseh Rav Dimi, Rav Dimi explained, he said, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibishter says, Yafa Asisi, it was good that I did, Shetekantilem Kvaris Ba'aretz, that I created for people that they should be buried in the world. In other words, when it says here, Vayinochem, you read it, Vayanchem, that Hashem is saying that He consoles Himself, that is a good thing that He did, that He created for the Adam Ba'aretz, that a person should be buried in the ground. My mashma, how do you see that this word Vayanchem could mean that the Eibishter is happy about this? Because Ksiv Hacha Vayinochem Hashem, Ksiv Hasam, Vayinachem Oisam Vayidaber Alibam. So it could be read also as Vayinachem. Hashem consoled them and spoke to their heart, which means that Hashem was happy about this. In other words, Hashem is happy that the people died because there's no tayelis in having them live. But Vekedamri, others say Lo Yafa Sisi Shetikantalem Kvaras Baretz. The Eibishter says no, it's a mistake. It's not a good idea to bury the people in the ground. Because and it says Vayinochem, which means literally that Hashem regrets. Ksiv Hacha Vayinochem, Ksiv Hasam Vayinochem Hashem Al Arash Divelastis La'amai, which means that the Eibishter is saying that I should not bury them because if I would leave them to live, maybe they would do tshuva. Okay, now going back to the beginning of Pashas Noach, it says Eila told us Noach is tzaddik tamim hoy b'dereisav. So tzaddik, he was a tzaddik, but it says b'dereisav in his generation. So Amar Rabbi Yechanan b'dereisav. In his day he was a tzaddik, but in another day he would not be considered a tzaddik. Reish Lakish says b'deiraisav and kol shekem b'deiris acherim. He was a tzaddik in his day, and definitely if he would be amongst other tzaddikim and he would have the influence of other tzaddikim, he would even be a greater tzaddik. So the Gemara explains these two opinions with a mashal. Amar Rab Chanina, mashal the Rabbi Yechanan lamad David Daima. What can we compare? What Rabbi Yechanan says about Noach to l'chavish shal yayin. You have a good barrel of wine, and it's sitting in a cellar together with other barrels of vinegar. So there, in its place in that cellar, so the good aroma of this wine is felt because amongst vinegar, the wine smells good. But if you take it out of that place, then this wine doesn't have such a good aroma. So the same thing, in this generation of Rishayim, Noach stands out as a tzaddik, but in another generation of tzaddikim, he would not. Rabbi Shi says, Mashal, the Reish Lakish, Lamad David Daim. This that Reish Lakish says that Noach, if he would have been in a generation of tzaddikim, he would have even been a greater tzaddik. So this is compared to Litzleichas Shal Palyatin, when you have a keli, a jug of Palyatin, which is some kind of a flask of Palyatin, which is besamim. Shoysim Menachas b'makam atinayfis. It's sitting in a dirty place. So b'mekayma rechanayif, in that dirty place, it causes still a good aroma. Definitely, if you put it in a place with other besamim, that this will cause a good aroma, and therefore Noach in another generation would have been even a bigger tzaddik. The Rebbe spoke about this a number of times. B'negei to Noach, it's not trying to in any way bring out the negative about Noach himself. The Rebbe was medayik in the Lashon Rashi. Yesh doishnei selishvach, yesh doishnei selignai. It's as far as the kind of lesson that we learn from Noach. When you see certain imperfections about Noach, you have to know the lesson that you take from it. But the emphasis is that it's both true. There was a mile in Noach and a certain chesaron. They're not really arguing about this. Okay, now it says in the pasuk, "Vayimach eskola yikom asher al pnei ha'adama." The Eibishter wiped out all of humanity that's in the face of the earth. And that includes everything. And the animals, everything was wiped out in the water of the Mabel. So now the question is, if the people sinned, what was the sins of the animals themselves? So it's like a person that's preparing a chuppah for the chasana of his son. And he prepares all kinds of things for the festive meal. And then his son passes away. So then he just takes everything apart, the whole chuppah and the whole meal, everything is not needed anymore. So Kazama, he says, it was all just for my son. If he passed away, what do I need the whole chuppah and the whole meal and everything? The Eibishter says, the behemoth, the chayes, everything in the world is created for the human being. What do I need the behemoth and chaya? And therefore the Malva comes and wipes everything out. But here it says, though, there's an exception, because it says, Mikola shebacharova meisu, v'loi dogim shebeyam. Whatever was on the dry land died. But that means that the fish, they did not die, which means that the fish, they weren't included in what it says before, that everything in the world with the animals they ended up cohabiting with one and not even their own min. By the fish, they did not have this, and therefore they did not die. What's the meaning of the pasuk where it says that kalhu al pnei hamayim, he's light, that he's floating on top of the water. They'll be cursed their portion in the world. Now Lamed, this teaches what Noach was doing. Noach HaTzadik was coming and rebuking the people of his generation. He said to them, Asu tshuva, it's time to do tshuva. The Eibush will bring a mabel and your dead carcasses will be floating on top of the water. Kizikin, like a barrel that floats on the water. You'll be just light like a barrel on the water. This will bring a curse to the entire world, as the continuation of the pasuk. This is what Noach was doing. It says the Eibishter made Noach build the Teva 120 years, and in that time period, he was trying to get the people of his generation to do tshuva. Now the pasuk there says, this is a continuation of the pasuk. La yifne derech kramim. We will not clear out the pathways of the vineyards. What does this mean? Melamed shayim mefanim derech kramim. What were the people doing? Punkt happens to be that they were sitting and doing their work, and they were clearing out the paths in their vineyard. Now, Amrullah, they said to Noach as he was telling them that the Mabel is coming, so they said, Omi ma'akiv, who's preventing Hashem of actually bringing the Mabel now? Amalahem, so he says to them, Preida achash yeshli lahoitzi mikem. I have one bird to take out from amongst you, which is a mashal. It means that Misushalach, which was a tzaddik, he's still living amongst you, and he has to die before Hashem will bring the Mabel so that he should not be judged together with all the people. So the people responded and said, if that's the case, we're not going to, we don't have to clear out the pathways of our vineyards. This is just a mashal. What it means is that you have the area of the vineyards that's full of thorns and negative things that doesn't allow them to go through, which is a mashal for their own behavior, which was full of negative things. And they're saying, well, if we still have Mr. Shalach amongst us that's protecting us, and the Mabel is not going to come, so we're not going to clear out all these negative things and the thorns of our pathway, and we can rely on him that he's still amongst us. What's the meaning of the pasuk where it says lapid buz? You have a flame of fire, which is a disgrace. Le'eshtois shanon, the one that sits calmly for himself, and he thinks that nothing will happen to him, even though he has bad thoughts. Nachain lemayadei regel. It's prepared for me to bring upon them by their feet. What does this mean? Melamed shoyu Noach atzadik mechiachais. And this is another pasuk which is referring to Noach that was rebuking and telling the people of his generation. V'amalem dvarim shem kashim kilapidim. He told them things that are as difficult as flames of fire, and that this is going to happen to them, and they should do tshuva. And but they were embarrassing Noach, and they said, Amru loy, they said to him, Zakin, you older person, Teva zu lama. What's this big teva that you're building? Amr lahem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, mevi aleichem es mabel. So he said, Abish is going to bring a mabel. So they said, mabel shama. He's going to bring a mabel of what? A mabel shaleish. If this will be a mabel of fire, yesh lanu davar echad va'alisa shama. We have something that's called alisa that could stop fire. Okay, this is some say this is some kind of animal has a power to stop fire. Maybe if he's going to bring water as a flood on us, if it's water that will come out from the springs from below from the ground, who maybe so yeshlano ashashi is shel barzo. We have these metal plates shona machapim bemesaretz will cover the ground that will not allow the water to come out. If he will bring the rain from heavens, maybe yeshlanu davar. We have something with Okev Shmoi. It has the name Okev that can prevent this water from coming down and stopping the rain. V'amrila Ikish Shmoi. Or they had something that was called Ikish. They convinced themselves that they could prevent any mabel that will wipe them out. Amalahem. So therefore, on that is a continuation of the pasuk. So Noach tells them, "Hu mevi mibein ikve raglechem." The mabel will be brought from between your feet, which means that your own zera will come and will drown you. Shanema, and that's what the pasuk is saying when it says "Nachal lamoyed de regal." It means that that Eibush will punish them from their own shichva zera. Right. That's the Tait Rashi here says that this is something that they will not be able to do anything about this. Tanya in a Braisa we learned that Meimei HaMabel, that from this we could learn out regarding the waters of the Mabel, that Koshem Kishichva Zera, that the Mabel water was like Shichva Zera, which means it was hot and thick. Shanema Nochel Amoyed Regal, as you see here from what's learned from this pasuk. Rav Chisda says in connection to this, Bereischin Kilkulu. They destroy their ways with Reischin, which refers to the forbidden relations with Shichva Zera, and therefore Kilkulu Bavere and Bereischin Edainu. And they were also punished with the waters of the Mabel, which were also boiling hot waters. Ksiv Hacha, and we learned that out because it says here Vayishayku Amoyim, by the Mabel, when it stopped, it says that the water stopped. And it uses the term Vayishayku. Oksiv Hasam, V'chamasam Melech, Shachacha, Achashverosh, when his anger, which is the hot anger of the king, calmed down. So you see that the term Vayishayku refers to hot. Vayihi l'shivas hayamim. Then the pasuk says that after 7 days, it started raining. And after 7 days, Umei Mabel, Hayu ala Aretz. So what are these 7 days? Ma tivam shel shivas hayamim. Amar Rav, so Rav says, Elu yemei avelus shal misushalach. These are 7 days of when Misushalach passed away. And then there was the 7 days of Avelus. And then only afterwards, the Eibusher brings a Mabel. It's not only when he passes away, but even the 7 days when they're eulogizing. Mr. Shalach, the Eibusher holds up the Mabel as well. So put on his love. Another pshat. What does it mean? L'shivas hayamim. L'shivas means sheshina aleim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Seder Bereishis. In those 7 days, the Seder Bereishis nature was changed. The sunrise was on the west, and it would set on the east, the opposite of the way it's supposed to be. Meaning this was the beginning by the Mabel, as it says, all the mazalas and everything, the whole Teva of the world ceased to function. Eibusher was didn't just bring a Mabel on the world, but everything in Teva stopped, and that began already in those 7 days where things went out of the normal Seder. Another pshat is Shekav HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zman Gadol, V'achar Kach Zman Kotten. First, the Eibusher gives them a long time period that they can do tshuva. It's 120 years. Noach was building the teva, but then afterwards, when it came the last moment, the Eibusher says, "You have the last chance," and that last chance was very short. It was just a small time of 7 days. Another pshat is the shivas yamim means shehet iman me'en olam abba kedei sheyedu mat tova mana mehen. In those 7 days, the Eibusher allowed them to taste me'en olam haba, so they should realize this is part of the punishment. They should see what it is that they can have and what they lost and what they're going to be destroyed. It says in the pasuk that what was brought into the teva, Mikola behema tahira, from the kosher animals, take 7 a ish and a isha. So it says this expression of a wife and a husband and a wife regarding these animals. So the Gemara asks, ishus lebehema mi isla? What's this expression of ishus regarding animals? You have an nekeva that is with many different zacharim, but there's no union of ishus by the animals. Uses this term of ishus to say that it's from those animals that did not cohabit with an animal that's not its kind. That's the one that came into the teva. Now, Mino Yoda, how did Noach know this? Which animals can be brought into the teva? Rav Chisda. So Rav Chisda says, She'aviran lefnei teva. He brought the animals in front of the teva. So kol shateva kol tasei. Whichever one the teva allowed in, so you know that this animal did not do an aveda. If the teva did not take him in, then, and that was wiped out in the mabul. Abavo says, that those that just came to the teva on their own, those were the ones that no aveda was done with them by them. So you'll make the teva from this atzei goifer. My goifer, what kind of a wood is this? This is the wood that's called mavliga. Others say gulmish. This is what's called gulmish. For some reason, I think it's translated when the Rebbes or the Malamdim in Cheder, when they translated for the children, they translated as Pinsenholz, if I remember correctly. Whatever that is, some kind of strong wood. Then it says tzayar tasel teva. You should build a tzayar for the teva. What is this tzayar? So here in the Gemara it says Amar Rav Yechon Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Noach kavaba avonim toives u'margolius. You should place inside the teva these precious gems, kadesh yiyum meiris lechem, and then they shine kitzarayim like the light of the day. So you should have light inside the teva. There's the other pshat of tzayar referring also to a window, but here it says that it refers to the avonim toives and margolius inside the teva. Then it says, that the teva is made slanty. It's made slanty to amma on the top. Why? If you're going to make a flat roof, then the rain stays on the roof, but it's made in this way in order that the teva should last. It should be strong in the time of the mabul. There are 3 floors of the teva, the bottom and middle and top floor. So tane, tachtiim, the bottom floor, lezevel is for the garbage, the middle floor is lebehema, for the animals, and al yainim, the top floor is la'adam, for the people. Then, at the end of the mabul, the pasuk says, "Vayishalach ha'sa'iriv." Noach sends out the raven to see if the land is dry. So Amar Rish Lakish says, "Tshuva nitzachas yeshiva oirev leNoach." A good argument. The raven says to Noach, "Amar loy." The raven says to him, "Rabcha, your master, the Eibishter, Seinani hates me, and Va'ata Seinasani, and you hate me as well. Rabcha Seinani, the Eibishter hates me because Minat Tohidin Shiva. From the kosher birds, there's 7 of each." But then from the ones that are tamei, like the raven, there's only 2. And now va'atas tanisana, you hate me because shatamaniach mi min shiva. You want to send out a bird to see if it's dry. You leave from those that are 7. And v'sholech mi min shnayim, you send from those that there's only 2. Now you're sending me, you're taking a big risk because in pegei bisarchama isartzina, if the sun or the cold will affect me and I won't come back, so will it not end up being that the world will be missing me, the creature of the oirev, because now it won't have the nekeva, the zachar, they won't have both together. Or then the raven said even more, so this is the zachar that he sent. He says, maybe you want the nekeva for yourself. Amaloi, so Noach answers him, Rasha, wicked one. B'mutali nesali, with what's permitted to me was now forbidden to me. Benesali lekol shekin, definitely what's always forbidden for me is definitely I will stay away from. Which means that Noach, when he wasn't a teva, it was forbidden for him to have relations even with his wife. So now where do we know this? When Minala on the Nesser, from where do we know that the matter of relations was forbidden? Because it says, Uvasal teva, and here it says, Ato vanecha, you and your sons. And then afterwards it says, V'ishtucha neshei banecha, and the wife and the wives of the sons, itach with you. But then when they leave the teva, there it says, Noach and his wife together. Yatzim and teva, that is, Ato v'ishtucha, you and your wife, u'banecha, u'neshei banecha itach. So from this you see that in the teva, they were separated. They were forbidden from having marital relations. To 3, there were actually 3 that did have relations inside the teva, but v'kulam laku, they all got punished for this. That's the kelev, the dog, v'oirev, the raven, and v'cham, and cham as well. Kelev, what's the punishment of the Kelev? Nikshar, that he's tied in chains. The dog is wild and he's held by a leash or in chains, that he shouldn't go and cause damage. And this that he's held in a leash is because of what he did in the Teva. And Oirev, the raven as well, Rok is Rok, which means that the way the relations of the Zohar and the Nekeva by a raven is with the spittle of the mouth, different than other creatures. Cham laka ba'ayrai. And Cham, the fact his punishment was the fact that his skin became black, the dark skin, that comes from Cham, they had his relations in the Teva. Then afterwards, after the Oirev, the raven did not. So what happened afterwards? The Noach that is sends the dove to go and see if there's meita lira sakalo hamayim, whether the water is receded and if it can go out of the teva. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Mikan shedirasan shal oifis tahirim im tzadikim. These oifis tahirim, they are living with the tzadikim, and they are the ones that didn't do any averis, and that's the one that Noach is sending out. Because it says Mei Ite was with him, and then it comes back V'hine ala zayis taraf b'fiyah. A leaf from a olive tree is in its mouth, and it uses the term taraf b'fiyah. So Amar Abalaza Amra Yain Lefnei Kadosh Baruch Hu Yain says in front of the Eibush Ribono Shel Olam Yim is a neisai merudim kazayis. Let my sustenance be as bitter as an olive tree. But a mesurim biyadcha, they should be given into your hands. Val yiu mesukin kidvash, but it should not be even sweet like honey. Or mesurim biyad basav adam, but it's given over into the hands of other flesh and blood. And that's he's darshaning here. Taraf b'fiyah means. The taraf means sustenance, that in the taraf in my mouth should be from zayis, even if it's bitter, but not from another person. My mashma, how do you see that the word taraf means sustenance? The high taraf, lishna de mezaynihu, the chsev hatrifeini lechem choki. Give me the bread that I need for the set amount that I need. It says the term hatrifeini, which means so you see the word taraf means the sustenance of a person. Then it says that all the animals, it says in the pasuk there, call chaya and so on, according to their families, that's how they went out of the table. What does this mean? This means that the animals, when they were in the teva, each group of family of animals stayed with themselves, and that's how they ate. Not all the animals ate together from one trough. L'shem. Eliezer said to Shem, or to Shem Rabbah. This refers to Shem, the son of Noach. He's called here Shem Rabbah, the great Shem. So Eliezer, which was the servant of Avraham Avinu, is asking Shem the following question. It says in the pasuk, that all the animals came out with their families from the teva. Aton, the you, which means Shem and his father Noach, heichan avisan. How were you there in the teva? What he's really asking him is, how was it possible for you, your father, to provide for all the animals that were in the teva, for each animal what they need? Amalei, so Shem answers Eliezer, you're right, Tsar God l'hoyalonu b'teva. It was a very big pain to take care of all this in the teva. Beria shadarka la'achila b'yayim, achalunu b'yayim. A creature that had to eat by day, so we have to make sure to give him his food daytime. Shadarka la'achila b'layla, the one that had to eat by night, achalunu b'layla, we have to come and give it to eat by night. Hi Zikisa, there was this animal that's called a Zikisa, name of some creature. My father didn't know what it is that it eats. And one day, he was peeling a pomegranate. A nafal telata, a worm fell out, from this pomegranate, and achla. The Zikisa ate the worm. Also, now he knew that it eats worms. So after this, so he would put the straw into water that it should spoil, and then there should be worms there. And kimisla, when there was worms, achla, it ate. So this is all he had to be busy with this, to give to eat for each creature exactly what it needed. And Arya, there was a lion, Ishna Zimse. When it became hot and it had a fever, the fever itself was a source of its own sustenance. The Amar Rav says, Leibotzer, Mishita, Veloitvei, Mitreser, Zina Ishta. That when a person has a fever, that fever, no less than 6 days and not more than 12 days, that fever itself could become a source of how a person lives, that his body doesn't dry up and doesn't cool out. So that's what happened to the lion when it was inside the teva. It's interesting, this is the opposite of what Rashi brings in the other opinion about the lion, that Noach brought the food a little bit late to the lion, and the lion bit him. Now, Chizra, this Chizra that was in the Teva, it went up a line, where am I holding here? Urshina, this Urshina, which was some kind of bird, And Ashkechine, Abba, my father, Noach, he found this bird. The Gani Besifne de Tevuse, it was sitting there in a room in the corner of a teva, and he wasn't bothering anybody. He didn't ask Noach for any food. Amalei, so Noach asks this bird, like, Bayis Mezaini, you don't need any food. Amalei, so the bird answers Noach, Chazisach Dahavas Tride, I see you working so hard and so busy. Aminu Layat I don't want to cause you any pain to have to give me food as well. Amalei, Noach said, Yehi Rava, the will of Hashem should be the late Thomas, that you should never die. And this is what happened. Shenema, it says in the pasuk, V'oimar Am Imkini Egva Kachol Arbe Yomim. That with the ones in my nest I will die, but then it says Kachol, like the sand, Arbe Yomim. This chayil, this bird, I think is Rashi says it's this Urshina, also has a name of chayil and it never dies. Amar Rabbi Chana bar Livoi, Rabbi Chana bar Livoi says, Omar Shem Rabba le Eliezer. So Tilia, it's talking about the questions that Eliezer asked Shem. But now it says the opposite. Shem asks Eliezer, Ki osu alaychu malke mizrachu ma'ariv. When the kings from the east and the west came and you fought with them in the war. So this is when Avram went together with his servant Eliezer to fight to save Lot from the 4 great kings. Heichi avdisu. How did you do this? How did you defeat them? Amalei, so Eliezer says to Shem, I see HaKadosh Baruch Hu Avram. The Eibishter came with Avram, va'isvei miyamine, and said to come to my right side, va'ava shadina nafra, and we picked up the earth and we threw it at them, va'ava charbi, and it turned into swords. Gili, va'ava gili, we picked up gili, which is straw, and it turned into spears. Shenema, as the pasuk says, Mizmah David, and this pasuk refers to what happened by Avram. No Hashem la'adaini shev liyamini. Hashem says, "Come to my right, sit by my right side. Ad asher sevecha hadayim l'raglecha, and I'll put your enemies below your feet." Oksev mi heir mi mizrach tzedek yikra'u l'raglav yitun l'fon of goyim u'malachim. Yered yitin ka'afar charbes. So the pasuk there concludes that the earth will become like swords, and kakash nidov kashtoi, and that the straw becomes like nidov kashtoi, like arrows, like a bow and arrow. That's how they defeated all these kings that they fought with.